Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hello.
Dave, it is a what a time to be alive right now.
Yeah, fresh off our live show back in the usual spots.
back in the remote studios, back in the
Mm-hmm.
caves and or dungeons and or bedrooms. Um,
Indoor dragons.
yeah, yeah, dragons, fully funded dragons.
Yeah, fully
So
funded large dragons.
yeah, congrats to our new friends at Four Horsemen Studios, to Jeremy, to all the horsemen on a successful campaign. You know that
Well,
we
they're
had
old
them on.
friends, but they
Yeah,
Jeremy
new
finally came up.
friends of the
We finally
pod.
had somebody on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like we always say, we're not an if, we're a when, and
Mm-hmm.
we were once again correct with that. They reached all their funding goals, so super excited for people to get their dragons in probably like a year and a half or so. So
Yep, the good
um,
vibes continue to roll on.
good vibes continue. So before we get into this week's
Um,
guest,
I'm murdering
um,
my thirst with cherry obituary today.
I almost forgot the hey Liquid Death, pay attention to us. We
Yep.
would love a sponsorship. So we're gonna keep Dave's gonna keep drinking it whether you sponsor him or not. So I don't know if that's a good like bargaining chip, but
Yeah, I'm still gonna buy it, so
a little bit
it's
of
delicious.
housekeeping. So we just have one bit of housekeeping this week, which is our monthly giveaway is live. So this month, as it is WrestleMania season, um, we we are giving away our guest, who is going to log in shortly, is trying to make me crack, and it's working.
Uh-huh,
Um,
me too.
so our monthly giveaway for this month is a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Mattel Creations WWE Ultimate Edition Shawn Michaels from last year. Um, it's the boyhood dream, Dave. So
Yeah,
it's perfect.
WrestleMania 12. No,
12.
WrestleMania.
12. Yeah,
Yes, 12.
12. It's a perfect giveaway for this month, as WrestleMania is quickly approaching. The
Hmm.
figure is sold out everywhere. It was a big hit. So your chance to win one.
By the
You
time we
just
air, 1 week away.
Yeah. Head on over to our Instagram at AIC_podcast. You will find a pinned post with all of the instructions on what you need to do to enter to win it. Pretty simple. It's really just kind of like the post, share the post, follow us, tag a couple friends, tell us who your favorite current WWE star is. But you'll find that pinned on our profile. Again, that is at AIC_podcast. We have no upcoming appearances or live events to plug at this time, which is,
No, but thank you to Zap Comics.
yeah, that was super fun. Um, I think you just had a collapse of some kind.
I
I
don't
heard,
know
I,
what though.
I heard,
Oh, I know what it was.
I
Okay.
heard toys collapse
Yeah.
in the background.
That's not a big deal. I just
um,
looked to see, I didn't see a bunch of pops fall over, so
if you could only see what is directly off camera. But yeah, so thank you everyone to Zapcon, our folks at Zap Comics, for hosting us. We had a great chat with Blaine and Chris. If you did not yet listen to that or watch that video, head on over to our YouTube channel and relive the moment
yeah.
live from Zapcon. We had a great
Thanks to
time.
everybody who
So
came.
ask
Thanks to everybody who
questions.
stopped by.
Yeah.
Thanks to Rusty for manning the camera.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Couldn't have done it without him. But I think with that, I think it's time to no longer bury the lead, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
this
yeah,
is
that's what we do.
this is a fun one because this week's guest is he's already a friend of the pod. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, you know him. You've seen him.
Friend of the pod, friend of the toy
Yeah,
industry.
like pillar. I would go as far as to
The
say pillar of
the
the toy industry.
collecting community,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Our guest this week is someone who doesn't just report the toy news, Dave. He breaks it. You've seen his work in the Toy Book, the Toy Insider, the Insider, and throughout numerous features across daytime television. He is the editor in chief of the Toy Book, a collector, and someone who's not afraid to ask the hard questions, especially when they impact the future of the hobby and the industry we love. Please welcome to the show our friend, your friend, the Rock Father himself, James Zahn. James, welcome to Adventures in Collecting.
Hello, thank you for having me. And it's been too long. We were just talking about that before the show, but we've known each other for years and have never recorded a podcast together.
Yeah, well, we're
Yeah,
checking that box tonight.
but we've
We're
definitely
doing it.
all been to live music venues because we all have some form of liquid death somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
we do. And what I was trying to make you crack on is the fact that Liquid Death is coming to the toy department. So we have the official Liquid Death pool float from Sunny Days Entertainment, and it comes in a box that looks a lot like Liquid Death water with much more attractive photos on it. But they were actually working on some figures, and I don't think those have
Oh,
come to fruition yet.
Oh
But
wow.
okay.
hey, let's put it this way: Licensing Expo is next month, and that's where I first met their licensing guy last year. So lots happened in 12 months, but
All right. Well, let him know that one of your favorite toy podcasts loves us some Liquid Death. So, maybe
Hmm.
drop a little, send you a little swag. You can give him a pin, a sticker, like maybe seed the conversation there.
I've been murdering their murdering my thirst, and they've been murdering my wallet for a couple years because
Yep.
the water is not cheap. And when it first
No.
came out, the only place I could find it was a grocer here I'm in the Midwest, but it's called Woodman's, and it was like $16 a case when that stuff first came out. But I was all in.
Yeah, I like the iced tea variant. I think that's my favorite one so far. That and the totally not Dr. Pepper. That one's really good too. Doctor, what do they call it?
Doctor.
Dr. Death. Yeah,
Dr. Death.
like Steve Williams.
Yes.
Um, so before we dive into some pretty, I would say, uncharacteristically heavy stuff for us to talk about here on this
Hmm.
show. For our listeners who may not know, how did you find your way into the world of toy journalism and end up kind of steering the ship there at the Toy Book?
So I always say it's a very non-linear career path that I've sort of fallen into things over the years, but the weird thing for me to think about is that my first professional writing gig was 33 years ago. So I started writing music columns in the Quad Cities in the early 90s. And at that same time, I was doing a cable access show. And even though I was a kid at the time, I was like 15, um, I was always thinking bigger. So pounding the pavement, dialing 411 information, pre internet, no YouTube. I got bands on my cable access show when I was in high school. So I had Megadeth, Stone Temple Pilots, White Zombie,
Oh wow,
and my favorite band of all time,
Nice.
Faith No More, which really opened the door to a lot of different things. So, trial by fire, learning to write, edit, shoot television, and then I was also writing. So I wrote for like three different publications at the time, and went through a whole thing like everybody else does, go to school and then go on adventures. And I went into business for a while, and I fell into the retail side of things, and I went corporate for a while, and I worked for Walmart. I worked for Kmart. I worked for Musicland Group in their Sam Goody division, and we sold toys there. It was when McFarlane was coming up.
yeah.
My
Mhm.
first holiday season with Walmart was 96 when Tickle Me Elmo came out.
Oh my god.
So there were these toy seeds being planted, but at the same time, I can never do just one thing, which is also true today. So I did journalism, I was acting, I wrote comic books, did all kinds of different things and was doing business. And then you start learning how all of this seemingly like unconnected stuff is really interconnected, and it snowballs together because you have licensing and entertainment and consumer products and all of the insights that go together with that. And I was working on all these creative projects like movies and things, and all of that has the licensing and the toys and all of that. So it comes together. I worked for other publishers over the years. I was the director of new media for Fangoria Entertainment for a number of years. So we had Fangoria magazine and Starlog, if you remember that, for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and made more toy connections there because doing that was horror. So you're talking to people like NECA and Mezco, and it just all sort of comes together. And as I started creating more of a profile for myself, and I'd gotten this Rockfather moniker because I was doing work in music, and I was also managing an artist and directing music videos. I did stuff for Fear Factory, which some people that watch or listen to the pod probably know, and different bands and things. And as I started developing that, I started writing more about toys just because I was interested in the business and what goes on behind it and behind the scenes. And I started consulting for a number of smaller toy companies, and through writing about all of that, it eventually came up to the collapse of the original Toys R Us. And a lot of my deep dive coverage of that really crossed over into the mainstream. And I started getting quoted in larger outlets about Toys R Us because I was finding things. And also, I had some folks on the inside where I was getting a little bit of intel that wasn't being reported elsewhere. And through that, I think I had landed on the radar of more people within the traditional toy industry and higher up the chain. Eventually, fell on the radar of Adventure Media and Events, which is our parent company, which has operated the Toy Book since 1984. And we have the Toy Insider and the Pop Insider, and they kept asking me to come on and join the crew, and eventually I did. And I started out as a senior editor, then became a deputy editor, then editor in chief, and now I'm editor in chief of the Toy Book. I'm senior editor on Toy Insider and Pop Insider. I'm the director of the Pulse Play Awards, and I have all of these things kind of intersecting, and it's a very, very unique role. And I again fall back on that non-linear career path that leads here. So it's like, hey, I did publishing years ago and now I'm doing publishing again. And for those that don't know the Toy Book, and on the collector side, I'd say that there's a lot of people that don't know the Toy Book, but the Toy Book has been around since 1984. It's the leading trade publication covering the toy industry in North America. And through that too, another role, another hat I wear. As of January, I'm now co-president of ITMA, which is the International Toy Trade Magazine Association, which has members from around the world. And of course, that's very helpful now because of what we're going to talk about today. But
Yeah.
all of these different things that work together, and the toy book's first print edition debuted at the North American International Toy Fair in February of 1985. So the company started in 84. They sort of did a year-long ramp up. They used to deliver, we send out an e-news blast, which I know you guys get on
Yep.
Thursdays, called the Toy
Hmm.
Report. That used to be mailed to people and faxed to people. And they used to
Perfect.
charge a lot of money for it. And there were ads in the old toy books because we actually have the archive, which lives in our main office, which is in Manhattan. And there were these ads that showed a cartoon of the stereotypical 80s businessman sitting at his big desk, and he's ripping his hair out. And it's like, you could rip your hair out and look for all this fun stuff or what all the information you're seeking, or you pay us $150 and we'll fax you all the headlines you need once a week. And now we give it away for free in an email on Thursdays. But yeah, the Toy Book's been covering all of it and has been like a de facto historian, if you want to call it that, through now we're in volume 41, which we just debuted last month at, again, Toy Fair New York. And
Yeah.
then Toy Insider, which you come to the events. That's the events part of our name. We put on something called Sweet Sweet. We do Holiday of Play. We got something new swirling that we'll tell you about soon. But Toy Insider is a consumer guide for parents, grandparents, gift givers, people buying stuff for their kids. So we hit you with the trade with Toy Book. I always equate it to being like the Hollywood Reporter, but for toys. You might not work in the business, but you want to peel back the curtain and see what's in there. That's
Yeah.
what we're all about. And then, of course, the third thing is the Pop Insider, launched in 2018. That is all collectibles and licensed merch for an audience that's 18 and older. So you could say it was doing the kidult thing before, quote, kidult became a buzzword outside of the industry back channels. So long way of getting to the point of saying, yeah, um, had some adventures.
Well, it's always so interesting when we have guests on for the first time and like, ask them to tell their story about like how they whether they're, designing toys, whether they're marketing them, whether they're, working in just kind of in the industry in general. Everyone always seems to like find their way, like
Hmm.
it's like almost like it's meant to be, right? Like like you said, no matter where you go, tracing back to, your earliest work, there's some sort of like cross section that either gets into licensing or gets into the actual toy stuff. So it's
I,
just it was a
I
matter
feel
of
like
time.
it's a big create your way industry.
It is, and then there's another factor of that people always say you can't actually leave the toy industry because people try and then they get sucked back into it somehow. I can't tell you how many executives I've run into that maybe they're a VP or even a CEO of a toy company, and they decide, hey, I'm going to take this paycheck, I'm going to go do something else and run some completely different company. And 2, 3 years later, they pop up at another toy company because there is, it is an industry and a business, but there is a community aspect of it. And so many people are friends. You think of the adversaries and stuff that exist within any business world, and those are certainly in the toy business, but overall, I think there's more of a collaborative community vibe where people really support each other, and there's a few of them where you look back through the toy book archives and it's like we practically printed their resume
Yeah.
because like people
Mm.
bounce around. Oh, this guy's at Mattel. 5 years later, he's a Lego. That type of thing.
Yep. Yep. And we love seeing that too, like,
Yeah.
especially around like the cons and stuff when everyone is together, or around the, toy fair. You follow enough people on social
Hmm.
media, you'll see pictures of like, people at the dinner where it's like, oh look, there's, this guy from Mattel sitting next to this guy from Hasbro, sitting next to this guy from NECA. It's just it's very we do get that sense, that there is a community, and
But
it's fun to be even just a little bit
but
part of it.
also like we noticed that too this year for like all of the like social media folks too. Like we at one point we're all like, oh yeah, we all know each other. Like as we're all waiting to go into like a
Oh yeah,
presentation.
at the Hasbro thing at Toy
Yeah.
Fair this year, it was like, "Oh look, it's Pixel Dan and it's Dan Larson and it's Toy Shiz," and
Yeah.
it's just like,
And then
"Oh, we're everybody's here." Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, yeah. That was a lot of fun.
The
It
other thing you
is.
mentioned, the other thing you mentioned though, James, is like, you kind of were, I want to say like the I actually will call it like the forefather kind of version of social media and like, YouTubing and streaming and stuff. Like the charm that was, and the thing that I miss the most about TV, public access was the best. Like it was OG YouTube. I'm so like,
Yeah,
and I'd be hard pressed to call it otherwise. But like I remember being a kid when I was a kid, there was such a charm. We had like Uncle Floyd and stuff out here. Like there was such a charm to public access, and I feel like New York was the kind of like held on to it for as long as it could. Now it's finally like done, but there was just something great about public access.
It was real TV. You could learn real skills
Hmm.
that you could use and get paid for it. Um, it was YouTube before YouTube, and if you sort of chart the lineage, have you guys seen the documentary about Tom Green that just came out?
I was just gonna say Tom
Hmm.
Green was kind of the first one to really transcend that. I mean, when I think of public access, I think of the movie UHF, and like I think of the Weird Al take on the whole thing. But yeah,
See, I
like
think of Floyd. I think
in
I'll go
real
Floyd.
life, I mean, Tom Green was that one who really kind of jumped, right? Because he had the I haven't watched the documentary yet, but if I'm remembering correctly, he had a public access show in Canada, right? And that was
Hmm.
where he got picked up from.
Yeah. So if you look at, say, I was doing, and I'm not going to say like, oh, I was first or whatever, because I wasn't. There were lots of other people that were doing different things and doing some great stuff out there. But I mean, I was in Davenport, Iowa in 1992 doing that. And then, say, late 90s, Tom Green's doing his thing in Canada. He gets picked up, comes to the States, becomes successful on MTV, then sort of pulls back. And after that show gets dropped, goes back to essentially doing cable access out of his house,
Yeah, the
but
call-in
when
show.
streaming was brand new, so like just on the cusp of YouTube. And then there's a famous clip which is now in the documentary, which is him and Joe Rogan
Mhm.
um, sitting
Hmm.
around and talking, and Joe Rogan saying that we got to figure out a way to monetize this.
And boy did
Yeah.
he.
That is true.
Yeah, that call-in show. There shouts to one of our favorite YouTubers. It was Wang just did one, right?
Yeah, Wang just did one on Tom
On
Green
Tom
versus
Green.
4chan.
Yeah, versus 4chan. Yeah, the original swatting event. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, so I mean, let's pivot from from kind of your history here to the landscape right now. So kind of what's the general vibe you're getting from manufacturers and retailers heading into the back half of the year?
I have never seen a business environment with as many variables and wild cards as we have right now. So the industry itself is very mixed, where you have, I'm really seeing a lot of parallels to what happened during the pandemic today. And keep in mind, by the time listeners hear this, whether it's 6 hours from now or tomorrow or the next day, this information could be totally different. That's how fast everything is moving and how many variables are at play here. So, in the pandemic, remember, the world went full stop and everybody thought, oh, sky is falling, we're all done. And then toys had record sales.
Mhm.
So what's
Hmm.
happened here in just the last couple of days is a lot of my retail contacts are telling me foot traffic is up right now, because now you got people that are racing to make purchases to beat tariffs. So I went out tonight, a couple hours ago. I went to a Meyer store, which is like a Walmart supercenter type place we have in the Midwest, and there's no price differences yet. It's all pretty normal. Because you got to figure a lot of the stuff that's on the shelf, there's no tariff on that. A lot of the stuff that's coming in, even if it was on the water on April 3rd, I believe it was, that stuff is safe. So there's a lot of product out there that there's no additional taxes on. But you have a lot of companies that have jumped into the rash decisions of, okay, we're going to cut back immediately, we're going to cut staff. Um, and they're doing that without even knowing all of the information yet. Because we've all seen the charts, the famous charts that President Trump showed with the different percentages for the different countries. And those are not only vastly different themselves, but they also stack. So you see a tariff on China that, say, is whatever, 34%, I think it was, and then that stacked on top of 20% that was already there. So you're at 54, and then they sort of go up and up and up from there to today, when the number being thrown out today is the absolutely absurd 104% tariff on China. Um, so you have a lot of companies that are rightfully very concerned on what's going to happen, but the way the numbers play out, even if it was something basic, like just say a 20% tariff, you can't definitively say the product is going to cost the consumer 20% more because there are back channel things happening where people can play with it a little bit. The manufacturer, meaning the factory contracted by the toy company, could be wheeling and dealing, the toy company themselves. Maybe there's a distributor in the middle there. Maybe it's being exported by the retailer and the retailer's taking the brunt of that up front. Maybe it's not. Maybe the manufacturer is bringing it in and sending it to a warehouse. Maybe the tariff is being put on what they call the landed price, which is like the wholesale price coming in. All of these people, they don't know. And when those charts came out, it was absolute chaos. It was, do I go from the landed price? Do I go from the MSRP? Does this stack? Does that stack? Does this category of product? Because there are thousands of categories. So within each segment, there's dozens of subcategories. So still today, I know one of the big revelations from this morning was that, oh, printed materials, like say gaming guides that come
Yeah,
out of China, not tariffed. That could change tomorrow, but as of today, that line item wasn't there. So you have all these different people looking at even the pieces, like the ingredients of and the components of other toys, where the toy itself might not be tariffed, but something used to make it may have been tariffed. Think about your metal.
yeah.
Have you heard about the
Hmm.
Venezuelan oil tariff? Have you heard about this?
No.
So there was another set of tariffs from the Trump administration that went into effect just a couple days before this whole reciprocal tariff thing began. And it was that we were going to put a 20% duty on countries that were buying Venezuelan oil. So that becomes part of the stack too, because China buys Venezuelan oil.
Got it. Got it.
So what do they make plastic out of? That's where it gets really, really complex. And I'm not an economist. That's not my forte, but I can do simple math, as I think everybody else can. And what we're looking at right now is a huge, huge mess, um, to put it mildly. And at the end of the day, I mean, I do have some ideas of how it's going to play out, but um, where we sit today is very confusing.
And I think, I just want to put
Hmm.
it out there, from the three of us that are all, obviously you are a journalist. That is your, as an editor in chief of,
Hmm.
of the toy magazine, really. You are a journalist. We consider ourselves to be journalists. That's something that I studied in school. I was very passionate about it. What we're talking about here is not anything charged. This is not,
Hmm.
we're not taking any kind of stances. This is
Nope.
purely talking about what is actually happening. I mean, these
Yeah.
tariffs are very real. They have very real impacts. Whether or not there is a long-term plan, that this is, kind of a short-term effect for, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what is happening in the moment and the impacts it is happening on this industry that we all love and care about, and
Hmm.
our hobbies, the things that we love to buy,
Yeah.
the companies that we support, the people at those companies who are, now under duress, from these things that are happening. So, you know for the rest of this conversation, dear listener, just please keep that in mind as we kind of move forward and continue talking about this. But
Yeah, because
yeah.
we're seeing like things that you would never anticipate seeing, just like kind of take a step back. I've never once seen like a company be like, "Yeah, we're gonna put a hold on pre-orders because we need to see what's happening," and that's
Yeah.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep, that was legitimately shocking. Like,
hmm.
I when and it was literally, like, literally hours. I don't even think it was a full day after that live stream. when they
Mhm.
said they're like, actually, time out. We're not going to take which would be, we're recording this on April 8th for a little timestamp, but pre-orders were supposed to open tomorrow, April
Yeah.
9th, for the Switch 2. I mean,
Mhm.
the sequel to one of the greatest gaming consoles, most popular gaming consoles ever made, and they're putting that on pause because of what's happening here. So it's just, it is wild. So many variables.
Yeah. And one of course we're talking about it now. One of the big conversations is the announcement of the tariffs from the current administration. So what impact are you anticipating from, or even just kind of seeing the industry and even collectors start to take? I know you said you saw foot traffic up, but like, is there anything kind of from the inside where it's like, hey, this is kind of how we're prepping this?
There, there are different, and you will hear this phrase. There are levers we can pull, and you hear that a lot on the big earnings calls, especially when Hasbro. There's what we call the big five, which are the publicly traded toy makers. So you've got Hasbro, Mattel, Funko, Jack Pacific, and Spin Master. And you'll hear all the time on their earnings calls that they have these levers they can pull. And that used to really involve moving production. Under normal circumstances, you look at the last decade or so, companies were already trying to diversify their supply chain. Going back to, I'd say Hasbro was probably among the first under the late Brian Goldner's leadership when they started to diversify out of China, not just because of cost and all that. A lot of theirs was actually IP related, particularly on the Transformers line. They started relocating a lot of that production to Vietnam because at the time there was a lot going on in China where the industry would call it the second shift, where you'd contract a factory and by day they're making your transformer. And then the second shift comes in and uses those molds and they make the demorphers or whatever they're going to sell, the
Ah,
bootleg version, the Temu version. They were trying to get away from that, but they inadvertently got out in front of a bigger situation that was coming right behind it, which was the supply chain crisis that emerged during the pandemic. So you had all of these companies trying to take production elsewhere, and uh, the complex stuff that collectors really enjoy, like things like a highly articulated action figure with photorealistic detail. The Chinese manufacturers have 40, 50, sometimes even 60 years experience making those types of products and doing it at scale, doing it quickly, doing it for a reasonable cost. And that's because of the decisions that were made many administrations ago, many corporate leaders ago, that decided, hey, we're gonna move production to Asia. And keep in mind too, there are certain toys that have always been made over there. You can even, I mean, pull up your old Hot Wheels and stuff from the 60s.
oh yeah.
Yeah, a handful
Hmm.
of them were made in the US, but you'd always see like made in Malaysia or something like that. Lots of toys from the 60s and 70s were made in Hong Kong. Um, but really in the 70s and into the 80s is where everything just went offshore. And then the EPA regulations came in. I don't think a lot of people realize that there are certain types of chemicals in different types of plastics that you just can't legally use here to from a production standpoint. Um, and I know it's one of the questions we put on the list, but when we talk about like reshoring or nearshoring production or bringing things back to the states, one of the big reasons why you can't do that is pollution. Um, you think about the days of old. Like, think about all that stock footage you see from the 70s of the refineries and the
Oh yeah.
smoke and the
Hmm.
smog and all that stuff. And I hate to say it, but that's actually what's happening on the other side of the world. And it was sent over there. But in the meantime, those people got really, really good. at what they do. And when companies tried to move production elsewhere, it was other countries over there that were taking that factory capacity: Vietnam, Indonesia, India. And then the back channel thing that, again, it's one of these things I don't think most people realize is some of those people that own factories in those other countries are actually Chinese, because they're the people that have the expertise and they're going somewhere else to put them there. So regardless what your opinion is on it, political or otherwise, just from a simple standpoint of, can this be done? No, you cannot flip a switch and move production somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big, kind of questions, and
Hmm.
whether it's toys or elsewhere, right? It's you know
Specialized labor.
yeah, bringing that back to the United States. What does that first of all, is that even possible? Is it logistically feasible? And what does that ultimately do to a cost? So, like, keeping it within the conversation here, I can grab any one of these figures that's near me, right? Like, we got like a wrestling figure from Mattel, we got a Marvel Legends from Hasbro. These are equal in price, right? They're right in that like $24 range MSRP, right?
Yep.
What happens to the cost of one of these toys if miraculously they open a factory in the United States and start producing toys here? Like, what does that do for the consumer?
All right, I'm going to go twofold on that and go spin it back to the pulling of the levers. So, one of the levers, of course, is moving production elsewhere. Another one would be changing up your packaging, which becomes a thing too. Like, I actually know a couple companies that are already doing this, where they're going to a retailer and they're presenting them with three packaging options. And it's like, this one has more stuff, this one has less stuff, and this one is practically just the toy with a tag on it. That cuts a little bit. Um, and you work into all of these different things. Now, a figure like you just showed me, I I would actually just say outright, you cannot make a figure like that of that quality in the US, period. And if you could, you're looking at a $60-$70 figure. Um, Part of it is simply scale. And ironically, I actually have a 6-inch scale figure somewhere in this office that is from a small manufacturer, and it is $60 on Amazon right now, and it's not made in the U.S. But just from a scale perspective, you need to sell so many of these things. Um, to set up production here, and we'll say just solely in this action figure realm, you would need billions of dollars of infrastructure. So you'd have to build the factory, and we're talking not just building the factory. You need to buy the land, you need to get the utilities in there, you need to get all of your permitting. You build the factory, then you need to get the equipment to run the factory. Well, guess what? Not made here. Most of that's made in China too.
Hmm.
Then you need the tooling. Oh, guess what? We don't have places that make tooling. Most of that's made over there too. So you could still get it, you could order it from them, ship it here, you're going to set that stuff up. Then where is your labor force going to come from? There are there are some factories. There are toys made in the US. It's not stuff that the collectors market is going to go after, and we can discuss it later if you'd like. I can tell you all about who makes stuff here and what those things are. But if in this imaginary world we're opening the action figure factory, who is going to operate this machinery? And of course, you want to pay them a living wage. So, what are we talking? $20 an hour, 25, maybe 30, to do what folks over in Asia sadly are doing for pennies on the dollar. But they're going to have to do these jobs. And if they're running factory lines, it's heavy, maybe hot work, maybe there's fumes and smells. Again, we're talking EPA stuff here. Not even allowed to use most of these concoctions, but if you could, they'd be running all of that. Then you're looking at, say, your tampos, your paint applications. Who's going to be sitting there painting the faces on or stamping this stuff? Um, what school do we have here in the US that's even teaching kids that skilled trades are an option for them? Um, so many things, and that fortunately there are some movements going on, and it takes the conversation elsewhere. But there are some organizations out there trying to bring back the trades a little bit, but it's not like it was in, say, the 50s or 60s, where you might live in a factory town
Yeah.
and your dad
Hmm.
is making enough to have the nice house and the nice car and put the family of four and in all the things, and the kids through school, and then Johnny grows up and he goes and gets a job at the factory too, and he's taken care of forever. That just doesn't happen. It's like a glimpse of the past from a different timeline, and you can't do it. But if you could, so you got to get all these people in there, pay them a decent wage, and then you got to look at the expensive packaging and everything else too, and then go, okay, so my 1999 figure, which is already overpriced, now we got to sell it for 60 bucks, 70. So you're going to sell less of them. It becomes a huge mess. And the reality is that, say everything else outside of labor works, it's all automation. So it's going to be robots anyway. So you bring production back to the US and you're not creating American jobs. You're creating an assembly line of robots. And there are companies that are doing this. There was just a story, and actually, if you go back, they're great people, and they've done this almost every time that there's been an issue over the past decade. Crazy Art.
Mm.
They're known for their puzzles, and they own the biggest pencil factory in the world that I believe is in Tennessee. They own a bunch of facilities, and they opened a huge spot down in Jacksonville, Florida, a couple years ago. They keep increasing their U.S. manufacturing capacity. Those jobs are not human beings. And anybody that tells you otherwise is mistaken. They're doing it with automation.
Yeah.
And even overseas, the business there is going to automation. If you want to look into who's really killing it on that right now, it's Zuru. You guys know them?
Yep.
They
Hmm.
Very
make
familiar.
X
Yep.
Shot and the Five Surprise and all of that. They Many people don't know that Zuru doesn't just do toys. They have an arm called Zuru Tech. They
Yep.
have a housing
The housing I
company
was just gonna say the housing
that
company is that website
Yeah.
is unreal. The where you can
yes,
build your own house and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
they are the fastest growing maker of diapers.
Huh.
They're doing health and beauty products, but where they are really excelling is that they have these skilled teams. And keep in mind, this is a company too that is from New Zealand,
Yeah.
but their people in Asia are like the best of the best when it comes to developing super efficient automated production. And that's how you look at what they've done in the blaster category with X Shot
Yeah.
versus Nerf. How do you make a product like that and take market share by producing something that's comparable, if not better in quality, at a more affordable price? You do it with the best robots in the world, and that's what they're doing. So if somebody could crack that and bring that to the States, you might get the efficiency, but again, you're just not getting the jobs.
And you still need the money to do
Hmm.
it, the capital to actually
The
do
capital.
something like
Yeah. The
that. And
startup.
that's the other part of it is like what of the big five, right? Like the companies that are publicly traded, like how do you even get board approval to spend that amount of
Hmm.
money on something that is
You don't.
potentially going to only make things worse?
They
And
don't.
like, where's it gonna go? Too is
They also
where people.
don't have the capital. They honestly do
Hmm.
not have the capital. It would require massive outside investment, and there are there are just so many other factors too. Like the thing that concerns me most is that we talk about reshoring or nearshoring, and everyone would love to see a strong economy, to see American job growth. Now we see if you're watching this on video, I have a big flag behind me because
Yeah.
the American flag, it means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it can be polarizing now. But I look at it as a symbol of like the greatness that has happened, and then of course too like the possibilities of what things could become here. And it would be fantastic to have everybody have just a high paying job and all of this. And manufacturing's not it. But what ends up getting lost in this shuffle with the tariffs and the taxes and the arguments when it pertains to the toy industry specifically is that I say the toy industry is kind of like Apple. Everybody looks at their iPhone box when you get it and it says designed in California, made in China.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
US toy industry, even though the toy industry is a global business, the US toy industry is, I mean, just it's powering billions of dollars in the American economy that is largely staffed by people that are not on the manufacturing side. They're doing design and marketing and all the corporate jobs and everything, and it filters down to the guys and the men and women that are loading the trucks and the longshoremen that are unloading the ships when they come in and the folks working the rails because we ship a lot of toys from the ports on the coast. It goes across the country on the rails. The truckers, there are so many different people that are within this ecosystem, myself included, and my team that they have these jobs because all of this other stuff exists, and we are a creative we're a creative economy, um, filled with bright creative people, but that manual labor for making those things, again, it was really the decisions of people decades ago that put us in this position we are today. And if it took us decades to get here, it'll take us decades to get out of this. And that I just don't think that's registering at the upper echelon of our government. And of course, too, toys and collectibles, this is a discretionary category too. This is
Yeah.
not something that is
Yeah.
essential. Um, that's very important to keep in mind. And you guys know it and I know it that there are people that are very passionate about all of this.
Hmm.
And passion sometimes leads to blockheadedness. And just I want to get that figure. I want to get this at an affordable price. I want it on my shelf and it crosses over into this sense of entitlement. And the reality is like you are entitled to nothing. You're entitled to either buy it if you want it and have the means to do so or not. That it's harsh, but that is the reality at the end of the day. And I will say, like a lot of these price increases, and we were seeing price increases before this tariff stuff happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
I strongly believe that no one is sitting out there in a boardroom going, "We're going to get another $3 for this Black Series figure this week." I do not believe that is the case. Prices have gone up because factors have pushed them in that direction. And again, every company is different as well. And go back to the lever pulling thing. Look at look at how a company like Playmates can sell you a 9.99 Ninja Turtle that I don't know how much articulation it has, but it feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have another company that sells a comparable product and it's twice that. Um, there, there's licensing fees piled on top that are different for everyone. There's different design fees that go into this stuff. There's packaging considerations. There's minimum guarantees that go in. So you never know what's going on behind the scenes. And then of course volume. So um, they're probably selling a lot more of the $9.99 turtle than the $20 wrestler. That
Yep.
type of stuff.
Hmm.
Yep.
So, we talked about the like bigger, publicly traded companies, and the lever pulling, but how are smaller independent toy companies navigating this? What have you heard on that end?
The smaller guys are having a real tough time, and they're going to have a tough time. I would imagine that some of them are not going to make it through this. I've already seen some canceled projects, which I'm sure you guys have too.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen
Hmm.
I've seen a couple crowdfunding projects get canceled that were already announced. I'm
Hmm.
aware of a couple that have been canceled that weren't announced already. Um, there are some lines that should start hitting retail this summer that'll probably get pushed to fall, maybe even get pushed into 26. Again, this is very similar to some of that pandemic stuff we saw where things just keep getting put off on the horizon because if the order's not placed already, why place it right now
Yeah.
when you know that there might
Hmm.
be this tax on it? Because the smaller manufacturers are at greater risk of being able to afford the product and not being able to afford the taxes on it. So the tariff is a tax. It comes in. If they're on the hook for that, they might not have the upfront capital to do that. And then they may also too, because the margins are thin to begin with, the tariff may completely put them in the negative, where they're bringing in a product at a loss. And there's ways that retailers and bigger manufacturers can play with that sort of. It's like the grocery trick where you raise the price on one item or a category of items to offset your loss leader,
Yep.
like
Hmm.
your bread and milk and eggs.
Yep.
Theoretically, eggs are a commodity right now too with the
What's the
collect them
phrase?
all.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But grocery, that's part of the business.
Yeah.
You raise the price of this, and if we were in the 80s, I'd say it's okay. We add $10 to Snake Mountain so we can still sell our Motu figure for $5.
Hmm.
That's the way you would kind of play it. Um, and to an extent, there may be some companies doing that. I just saw it, and I won't say what the item is, but we just had because we're in production right now. We're in production on two new issues of the toy book, an issue of the Pop Insider, and a Toy Insider Spring Summer gift guide. And for us, this gets to be all kinds of fun because people have submitted products that appear in our publications and they have an MSRP with them. And now they're reevaluating those MSRPs.
Oh
Well,
my god.
one of my colleagues just sent me an email the other day from somewhere in the collector space, and I'll tell you that this is a Pop Insider thing. There was a higher end product that was supposed to cost 250, and the MSRP has now changed to 329, I believe.
Jeez.
That was going to be
So
my guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's like a 31% increase.
Yeah.
um Now something like that, of course it sucks, but if somebody's already spending hundreds of dollars, it might be easier for them to stomach than somebody that has watched their favorite figure line go from $20 to $30 over the past 5-6 years.
Yeah.
um, you start pricing people out, and certainly takes a lot of the fun out. And then realistically, because what we do as well, I mean, we're serving the entire toy industry and everybody in it, from baby toys up to um, there's a fun new one too. If we talk about kiddles, there's now this silver market,
Oh.
which
Oh.
last year people were calling it eldertainment, And
Oh god, I hate that.
now they're starting to
Oh,
say the silver market, which is 49 and up. Um, so we cover all of it, and where it's really going to hurt people is not all of us that want to collect something and have it all on the shelf like I have behind me, and you guys do too. Uh, it's people that want to buy stuff for their kids,
yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
regardless of all, every time I hear, I get it every couple weeks. Oh, kids don't play with toys anymore. Uh, Not true. They don't in the way that they did previously, and they might not as much as we'd like them to, but traditional toys still sell tens of billions of dollars worth of toys a year that are enjoyed by kids. They don't necessarily play with them as long as we'd like. They age out of things quicker. But when you look at a mom or dad, or say grandparents, that maybe they're on a fixed budget, they buy for the same amount of kids every year, they're really going to start seeing it during the holidays, where you might not see it on one toy that you go out to buy today, but when you put it all together, you might realize, hey, I'm getting less for more, or I'm spending the same and I'm definitely getting way less. And that's a disheartening thing. Um, the other the other thing you can factor in too, that is a little bit unique to the toy industry, is that in some cases, and again, not collector, more traditional toys, um, there's no benchmark with this year's toys versus last year's toys, because a lot of them didn't exist, because the industry
Mm,
thrives on newness.
yeah.
So for
Yeah.
certain things, like say there's a super hot item, like I know you guys loved the Disney Stitch last year, which
Yeah,
I
oh
did
yeah.
too, the
Yes.
Puppetronic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um,
they have Angel now,
so
right?
yeah, but say something like that comes along that's just like the hot toy of this year, but it didn't exist last year. So you can't say, oh, it's $75 now and it was 60 last year. There's no
Mm-hmm.
comparison.
Yeah.
Little bit of that gets to be played with too, but we go back to this 104% thing. We're all in a big pile right there. Nice way to say it.
Yeah. And I mean I think I want to transition to another topic, but I want to just kind of
Yeah,
put a bow on this, right? And we'll
Yeah.
yeah,
shift to something a little more positive to end our chat here. But
yeah.
I think, like you said, it's volatile. I think we just need to kind of all keep an eye on it.
Mm-hmm.
If the pandemic taught us anything, right, is like the knee jerk reaction is not necessarily the right reaction. Just be cautious, keep an
Yeah.
eye on it, and as we tell people on our Instagram feed all the time, as we're sharing the news and everything as stuff comes out, um, just stay within your means.
Yeah. Do
It's
what you can.
do what
Get.
you can, find joy in what you can enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot out there. It still remains to be the best time. We're in a gilded age of collectibles. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
never been a cooler time to be an adult collector of toys. I mean, that stuff looks like, I always tell people, right, it when we were kids and we played with the action figures that we had, our imaginations kind of helped us sell the things that we were trying to make them do. And like now
Yeah.
they can actually do those things. Like they can move the way that we wish they did. They look the way that they,
Mm-hmm.
we wish they did. They have the
Yeah. Like
accessories,
wrestlers
everything.
just
Yeah.
were statuesque. Now they
So,
I
move.
you know, it's just focus on the
And
good stuff, right?
I
and
do.
it might mean like even just like, hey, stuff sits for a little bit. Like
Yeah.
maybe that's what happens. We don't know. Like we really don't know.
So I think what's going to happen here, I'll tell you my spidey sense on this is that I believe this is all going to blow over. It's the George Harrison thing. All things must pass. This will pass. The toy industry, as we know it, has been around about 120 years. Um, Disney thing years ago. I remember during the pandemic, Bob Iger saying on a conference call, this company, meaning Disney, has been through actual war. sent people to war. There've been bigger problems out there. This will pass. I don't believe that. I actually think that the majority of these tariffs are going to come back down very, very quickly, because we're already seeing, like, Vietnam's already come to the table and they're like, hey, we'll go 0% if you guys go 0%. So they want in. There's like 50 other countries that have come up that want to negotiate. End of the day, it's going to become just a button heads battle between the US and China. It's been building to this. It's important to remember that, hey, this is about our governments. It's not about the citizens. It's not about everybody's politics. It's really about the administrations. There are good people in China, just like there's good people in the US, hardworking people that want to make a good living and take care of their kids. Um, it will come back down. How long are we going to fight with China on this? No one can answer that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Mhm.
there are other options out there. You guys also pegged it too. You live within your means. And that anytime too. I mean, we love this stuff, but it can also cross into an unhealthy point of addiction with the collectibles. A few folks don't want to admit that, but I remember a conversation a year or two, an exchange I had with Pixel Dan, which was that, like, hey, you know, if what happens if you kick it and your HasLab hasn't arrived yet? Who's going to deal with that thing when it shows up on the porch a year after year after you're gone? And nobody wants to say it, but you know what?
Yep.
That happens. Um,
I'm looking at my
it's-
cell barge right now as you say that.
Yeah.
Staring at it.
all over here. I showed you guys before the call that I had a pile off to the one side
Yeah.
of my desk. Because I've been so busy, I still have my Hiss tank and my Dragonfly sitting there.
Oh
They are
boy.
not, I have not even cut the factory tape on the boxes that they come in. And I want to set them up and display them and, play with my figures. But it just hasn't happened yet. I'll get there. But there are much more important things in the world. We're just all fortunate that we get to continue being kids
Yeah.
to an extent. And whether you want to say the kidult thing or not, but the adult collector, again, adult collector has existed forever. People just didn't have a buzzword to put on it.
Mhm.
But we're fortunate that we get to do this and we get to live in this time. Now we just have to put up with a bunch of other people for a little bit and cross our fingers that it'll all be okay. But I will tell you this, most of us will still be around here this time next year, and we'll be laughing about it.
I hope so. So, speaking of laughing about things and enjoying things,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you do, and you alluded to it earlier in the conversation, is you go to a lot of events. You know, whether that's licensing expo, whether that's all the different conventions, the events, absolutely wonderful events with incredible food, and sometimes fake Snoop Dogg that we that we absolutely love going to every year. So you see a lot of different, cross paths with a lot of different makers, a lot of different toy brands, a lot of different toy lines. Um, what's like in the past? We're in Q2 now, so like so far this year, has there been any kind of sleeper hit or like an under the radar toy line that you've been surprised by or that's wowed you in your travels?
First off, let me give a shout out to the Snoop Dupe. If you don't know him, his real name is Eric Finch. He's a SAG actor. You can find him on Instagram. He does a lot of really cool stuff, and is a good dude. And yes, he does look quite quite familiar. That he's
Fooled
from the
me.
LBC.
Mhm.
Fooled me.
Yeah, so you know, but good dude, and yeah, he was at one of our events last year and was pretty awesome. But as far as sleeper hits, there's nothing yet that I would say would resonate with the collector audience. There's a
That's
lot of
okay.
really there's
No,
a
just
lot of
something
really
cool.
there's a lot of really buzzy products out there. One of which is on the outer cover of the latest toy book, which I think you guys have.
Yep.
This Gooey Gooey from the folks at Moose Toys. It is a slime but it's a slime for like the Ulta Beauty Sephora kid. That it's got a very pleasing texture. Like skincare and stuff is actually a trend in toys right now, especially with tween and teen girls. It's got quality scents, a nice texture to it, nice feel. And I'm not even like a slime enthusiast or whatever the compounds, but I dig what they got going, and you can make some cool things. I think Crazy Art has a really cool line of these crystal gem creations. It's sort of a completely different spin on like what Lego Botanicals was doing. Like
Mm,
building you're building a plant, which uh, look at gardening and botanicals as an overall toy trend this year, just
interesting.
across the
Okay,
board.
that's
Um,
cool though.
there is a Play-Doh potting set. So you get the brown Play-Doh, that's your dirt, you're planting the flowers. There's real greenhouses that are like toddler and preschool size that you can put outside, teach the kids about growing their own food. John Deere is actually one of the fastest growing licenses
Hmm.
Amazing.
for toys, which you can find all kinds of stuff with that. But um, so compounds are big this year. The gardening, also food play, is another big thing this year. But I think there is. You want to say something that, and maybe I told you guys this at one point, but I think the big surprise for collectors is gonna come from MGA, and I can't tell you anything more than that.
Okay. All right.
And aside from, I will add one more thing. They have two brands on the horizon. One you might be able to find some information about in more of a general form, but you haven't seen the products yet. And the other one, I kid you not, no one outside of perhaps the retail buyers that have placed orders know that this thing exists. And when it finally comes out, I will tell you this was the thing. And I'll
Okay.
see if you guys agree with me on it.
All right.
But by the end of this year, knock on wood, that company, which everybody thinks of with their dolls and their preschool stuff, is basically going to be in every aisle of the toy department.
So
So,
here's the thing that I find very interesting about what you just said. So, friend of the pod, formerly of Jazzwares, Greg Mitchell
yep.
is found his way over to MGA, and I was wondering what he might be up to over there. And now that move makes a whole lot more sense knowing his
Um,
background.
believe you could say he found his way back
Yes.
to
Hmm.
Yeah.
MGA
Yeah. Yep.
because he was
Correct.
there previously, and he's not the only one. He's not the only one that's there. They have some talented folks that have popped up in Chatsworth, and I think Mr. Isaac Larian would be okay with me stopping at that.
Okay.
But
We'll leave it at that. We'll
Yeah,
leave it at
cool.
that.
big things. Um, yeah. So that I would say would be, you talk about under the radar. That would be kind of under the radar.
All right.
So that stuff is really good. There was a lot of stuff I saw in Nuremberg. I was at Spielwarenmesse, which, for folks that aren't familiar with that, that is the biggest toy fair on the planet. So to put it in perspective, Toy Fair New York, which was fantastic this year, I thought. I hope you
Yeah,
guys
it
had a
was
good
awesome.
time
Yeah, it
too.
was
Oh man,
great.
it was great.
Um,
It was great.
so there was a lot of embargoed stuff at Toy Fair New York too that you couldn't take pictures of, can't
Yeah.
tell anybody about.
Hmm.
Um, so to put it in perspective, I think Toy Fair New York had about 850 exhibitors this year. Spielwarenmesse had 2,700.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
across 12 or 13 halls. Um, and it's a test of physical prowess to
I was
just
gonna say
even be at
my
this
knees
thing.
hurt. My knees hurt just
Um,
thinking about that.
I was gonna say, Dave, are we going to Nuremberg next year?
We could.
yeah. Surprisingly, I ran into Dan Larson in Nuremberg. He came around the corner and it was like,
I
dude, you know.
I saw that he was there.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, that was
Yeah.
super cool. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
following his coverage of it.
So that place is awesome, and you see a lot of stuff that is not available here that I would love to see some U.S. retailers take a shot on. Um, they have pretty much like every category you could imagine, and then just so many variations on it. I mean, one whole hall, for example, was just wooden toys. And you think of like the wooden toys we see here for like a preschooler, you know, like
Yeah,
the little block
Melissa and
Mhm.
car.
Melissa and Doug type stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, but the craftsmanship and stuff that is just super beautiful, and again, you cross over to like, oh, I could see that just like sitting on my shelf or on my coffee table or whatever. The toys as art, art as toys.
yep.
Um, really, really cool stuff. One of my favorite items that I saw over there, and I immediately said somebody's going to knock this off tomorrow, and then I did see a variation of said item in New York, from a different company. Whammo has a fog bubble machine coming out next year. That there's there's fog in the bubbles, and you can run it
Yeah,
as bubbles, fog, or both. And when
Oh,
they
that's
hit
cool.
the ground, they look like a ghost, like dissipating. Yeah, it was pretty. Sometimes the simple ideas are the best ones.
for sure.
Good for the kids and good for the bands too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I was in Europe a year ago, and I was like floored by how much stuff like I saw there that wasn't here. Like in London, just like the amount of diecast and stuff like that. So I can only imagine just what else is out there.
They love diecast. I was in the press lounge at Spilvarenmesse, and I met a guy from Italy. I don't recall his name right now, and he didn't he didn't speak as fluid of English as many of the folks over there do. I mean, most of the folks over there speak better English than my neighbors. You know, but he was telling me as best he can, and with a childlike sense of whimsy, that he's from Italy and he only covers diecast cars, and that's it. And that was his whole reason for going to Germany. And he was going to see as many diecast vehicles as he possibly could, and go back and report on them. And I was like, that is passion, and that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of growth in that category too. Look at the big Ferrari and Hot Wheels announcement this week and everything.
Oh yeah,
A
all
lot of
the
cool
F1
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, F1 is like the hottest thing going right now.
Yep. Especially with like Lewis Hamilton with them. Yeah.
So before we head into our final question, James, we're reaching the end of our interview here. Um, what's coming up for the toy book, and what kind of industry coverage should our listeners and watchers keep an eye out for from you?
Sure. So the toy book now publishes. We actually increased the frequency last year. We publish 7 issues a year in print, and our next issue comes out. So I'll back this up. We just released our annual big book. We call it the Big Toy Book, which traditionally has come out every February at Toy Fair New York. Going back again to the beginning of the call when we said first print edition came out February of '85. So February of 25 became actually March 1st, because that's when Toy Fair was this year.
Yep.
Hmm.
So we released the Big Toy Book. And in addition to in depth features and exclusive commentary, that one has nearly 600 new toys and games that are coming out this year across all categories. May 20th, we're going to release the licensing and entertainment plus baby issue of the toy book, because Licensing Expo and ABC Kids Expo overlap this year. They are both at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and they are the same week, and they're in adjacent halls. So you can go right and go to Licensing Expo, or go left and go to ABC Kids Expo. And there's a huge convergence there because ABC Kids, people used to think of it as just a baby show. Well, there's a lot of toys going in there because a specialty toy market, uh, your little boutique stores and independent retailers, a lot of specialty toy stores are carrying baby. A lot of baby boutiques starting to carry more toys. Uh, Got to get the kids while they're young, and create those lifelong toy fans.
Oh yeah.
And So that's going to be really cool. So it's like you're going to go in Licensing Expo and you're going to see all the big guns: Pokemon, Lego, Hasbro, Mattel, Jazzwares. They're all in the house. You go next door, and then retailers are going to the ABC Kids Expo, and they'll see people like Ravensburger is going to be there, and Radio Flyer, and all kinds of good stuff. So I'm excited for that. Then, just because of the way the dates come together, about 2 weeks later, we're going to drop the Specialty Toys and Gifts issue, which debuts at Astra Marketplace and Academy in San Antonio in June. And for those that don't know, Astra is the American Specialty Toy Retailing Association. They represent tons of specialty toy stores across the U.S., but also uh, picking up a lot of steam in Canada. So they're getting quite a few members up there. But they put on a trade show every year called Marketplace and Academy. It moves to a different city every year. So we're going to have that coming. Uh, 2 issues following those that I think will have a lot of crossover appeal, especially for folks listening to the pod right now. Our action adventure issue, which is the second time we've done this. We've debuted it last year. That's going to debut July 31st. We're going to have copies of that available actually at Gen Con for free, alongside new issue of the Pop Insider dropping there too. That one's going to have all kinds of action figures, vehicles, outdoor toys, like the name says, action
Yeah.
and adventure
That was
together.
a great issue
And
last
then,
year.
Yeah, that was a lot of
thank you.
fun.
And then September, I'll be back in LA, and we're going to drop the 2025 LA Fall Toy Preview issue, which is now it's shaped up to where it's almost like we do 2 big books a year. One comes out for Toy Fair at the beginning of the year, and then LA Previews is equally large. So that's going to have a lot of forward-looking 2026 stuff. But I will tell you that next month's issue, the May issue, there's some cool stuff in there. We're doing a deep dive on the relaunch and packaging design for the new Power Rangers. Power
Oh,
Rangers
awesome.
Very cool.
reignition or
Reignition.
reignition or
Yep, reignition.
Yeah.
reignition. But yeah, so the guys that the guy that runs the design firm that did all of the new Power Rangers branding and all of the packaging design is actually Ted Manini, the guy that writes the Outside the Box column for the Toy Book.
Oh,
Oh,
So
cool.
took a little while. We wanted to do that one in the big book, but that required layers of approval to tell that story, because it's a Hasbro brand being made by Playmates Toys, and then you got third party involved with it. So we're finally telling that story, and we're going to show some of those visuals. So that's a lot of fun because it is licensing and entertainment. We've got a really cool Jaws 50th anniversary product line feature, How to Train Your Dragon. We've got the Disney Stitch explosion in there. We have a
yep.
sweet feature about music merchandising, and some of the folks in that space, like McFarlane, Super 7, Funko, etc., and the licensing agents that work behind that. And then we do an annual feature that's the Hot Kids brands. So it's licenses and franchises and stuff that are either new and emerging, just super hot for some reason, or are becoming the new evergreen staples, like you think like a Bluey or that type of thing. But we've got some really cool brands in there, and lots of interviews and stuff. So team's working hard on it, and alongside that, we got spring issue of the Pop Insider is also debuting at Licensing Expo, and that one just has all kinds of collectibles. We got fandom finds. Our thing with Pop Insider, we always say fuel your fandom.
Yep.
There's something for
Hmm.
everybody in there. It's basically like, you look through and it's like, yeah, I would like that and that and that and
I'll have one of
all the
these.
stuff
Yes.
that's in
Well, it's
our,
like,
for us. I'm just saying, like us here on the show right now, we would very much
well, listen,
enjoy a lot of the things.
I've got the big toy book that's currently still sitting on my counter in my kitchen. It has sticky notes all over it from my daughter, who, as soon as it came in the mail, she was like, "I want this.
Oh,
I want
I
this.
love
I want
that.
this."
I miss when my kids. How old is your daughter?
She'll be 10 in September, so yeah,
Okay, see, my
she's
I got teenagers now, so I do miss those days when you could do that. But yeah, the uh, the big book, which I have right here for those of you watching this on video. Yeah, so many great
yeah,
toys in
it's
here.
great. It really is.
Which
Well,
I'm looking through here, and it's like, yeah, there's a few things like I want this Wave 2 biker mice,
Yep,
uh,
mhm.
that
yep.
type of thing.
Well,
Thundercats, Motu.
it's funny because like Maddie and Callie would want some similar things, but some completely different
Oh
things
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. My 4-year-old wants, I mean, I just bought her a Beetlejuice Toonie Terrors the other day in
Hmm.
Walmart. She wants the spooky, creepy stuff.
Godzilla.
Daddy bears, Godzilla, all that good stuff. So, James, we have a tradition here on the show.
Hmm.
We have a final question that we ask all of our guests as kind of our send off here. Dave,
Okay.
would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
Why, yes, I would. So our final question that we ask all of our guests, James, what is your favorite and/or strangest piece in your collection? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
Hmm. This is this is one to stump. Well, I'm gonna probably go with the most obvious thing that is in my office. Um, in terms of, it's not the strangest, but it's the most unique. I actually own, depending on how you want to look at it, one of, if not the rarest Transformers in the world. And it is the handmade chrome Optimus Prime from the 2007 Michael Bay Transformers movie, made by the Hasbro design team for G4's Attack of the Show. And it's sitting about 5 feet from me right now in a case.
Wow.
Um, and so that is, it's probably the most valuable thing that I have too, because I'm very particular in terms of like what I buy for myself. Like if you see behind me, I've got a lot of classifieds behind me. I really like that line. And then I tend to pick up like odds and ends. Like I'm not a completist,
Yeah.
um, which I was once upon a time, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when I went way overboard when they brought Star Wars back in the mid 90s and had an entire Star Wars room at my house until I got tired of moving it a few times and sold all of it. Um, yeah, and that point it was like, oh, it says Star Wars on it, I'll take two. That type of thing. I got out of that mentality. So now I get things that I really, really like. So I think, yeah, not the strangest, but definitely the rarest, probably the most valuable thing I have. And then in terms of a favorite, that is just like a really hard thing
Now, see, I
to
thought I
say.
knew what the answer to this was going to be for you. Most of the time, our
Really?
guests, I have no idea what the answer is going to be. I thought I knew what your answer was going to be because
What'd you think it was going to be?
you have a distinction that not a lot of people that we've had on this show have, and
What's
that's
that?
something that's usually reserved for the few professional wrestlers we've had on this show. You have your own action figure.
That is true.
And I
Um,
thought for sure that was going to be the answer for this.
I love it. I absolutely love it. That is true. I 100% love it. I'm honored that it happened, but I don't know, wouldn't it be kind of vain to say that that action figure
Abs-
of you is your favorite thing? Uh,
Absolutely not.
No.
Favorite toy in your collection? I mean, I think that
so
Transformer can definitely be both because that's
Yeah,
really cool
absolutely.
and amazing. But like, Are you kidding me? If I have the pop yourself Funko version
Mm.
of myself at the top of my stairs. It's the first thing
Yeah,
anybody sees when they walk
it's
into my
on my desk.
office.
Yeah.
If I had an actual action figure of myself, that would 1000% be my answer. So
See,
I thought for sure that would be yours.
so mine is it's more of a figurine than an action figure because it's not articulated, but
That's fine.
PMI Kids World, which makes some really cool stuff. They've got a cool UFC line coming out next month,
Yeah.
where the figurines come in
Hmm.
little punching bags.
y- Yep.
But they've made Among Us and Pinata Smashlings and Booksy and
Pudgy
um,
penguins.
just so many cool things. Yeah, they do
Got one of
Sonic
those
the
on my desk.
Hedgehog. But yeah, PMI, and they're celebrating 30 years this year. They made a figurine of me, and funny enough, I know. So when it showed up, which was a surprise, the second I took it out of the box, I knew exactly what picture they based it off of because my so I always throw up the metal horns, like the rock
Yeah.
fingers, and but my arm on the figure, one of my arms is turned with my forearm out.
Yeah.
It was based on a picture of me at a Hasbro breakfast at San Diego Comic-Con, probably in like 2019 or so. And in the picture, I had my forearm out because I was showing an airbrushed Autobot symbol tattoo that was on there. And whoever the designer was, that must have been their basis because my fingers are up and my forearm is turned. Um, but it's awesome. They nailed the likeness. I mean, it's a real sculpt. So they sent me two of them. One of them I traveled with for a while, and I took pictures of it, kind of like a flat Stanley thing.
Yeah.
And admittingly, I broke one of the little rock fingers off because it's small. It's a figure, but
Yeah.
eventually, after like taking him in and out of the package a bunch of times, I did break one off. But I am told that two more copies exist at the PMI office, which is in Tel Aviv, Israel. So that's there. And the thing you might not know is that I'm also a Pinata Smashling,
Oh, are you?
and
I have a bunch of those
um,
somewhere. I don't know where they are. They're not in
and
arm's reach.
Hey Clay made a version of me, which, funny enough, I think they modeled their Hey Clay is like air dry clay,
Yeah.
but it's
We have
super
the app.
detailed.
We use the
Okay,
you use the
I think
iPad
they
app that
modeled
teaches
their
you.
version of me off the PMI figure, and they brought it to Licensing Expo, and I know one other guy that has one. I don't know if you know him. His name's Steve Starobinski. He's another like familiar guy. He works for Pudgy Penguins now. He used to work for Gel
Okay.
Blaster.
Okay.
Um, but he has a version of himself in Hay Clay too.
That's
So
funny.
those are out there, but maybe one day I'll have an articulated figure. I don't know. I
Fingers
ordered
crossed.
a now you got me thinking. I ordered a Jeremy Padower figure from Major
Yeah.
last year. That hasn't arrived yet.
Nope, not
Um,
out yet.
No.
Not out yet.
so I need that. I got to get that one.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't
Don't
have a
compare me.
Funko Pop Yourself because they don't do the goatee like mine. That's not.
It's
It's
They
not an
just do
signature
option
the
look.
yet.
beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Signature look.
Not an option yet.
Well,
So
I
James,
had the long hair at the time. That was tough trying to figure that part out.
yeah, you should have waited. Now you can they have the mohawk.
Yeah.
Um, that this brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us in an official capacity for once. Jeez,
Mhm.
took us long enough. Uh, Before we let you go officially, just remind everybody where can they follow you on social media and where can they make sure that they are on top of the pulse of play.
sure. So you can follow me at the Rockfather on basically any platform you'd like, except for LinkedIn, where I'm just James Zahn. And if you like LinkedIn, I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I love that actually over there. But I'm at the Rockfather on all your other socials. For the toy book, check us out at toybook.com, thetoyinsider.com, thepopinsider.com. Um, Hit up all of those websites. They have all of our social links. You can subscribe to our magazines. Uh, I would say for print, print still matters. Print is still awesome. Toy book, you get a subscription, 7 issues a year, shipped direct to your mailbox for $50. So it's a good deal.
It is.
Even if I
Yeah,
didn't work here,
absolutely.
I'd say it was a good deal. So you get that, and then of course too, if you run into us at an event, you find us at Toy Fair, Licensing Expo, whatever, we actually have copies of the magazine there that we will give you for free. But if you'd like it delivered to your mailbox, grab a subscription.
There's nothing like getting mail. I still love
Hmm.
getting. Maybe it's just we're of that age, but like I love
Yeah,
getting mail that's actually like look forward to it mail, not
Eric,
like
we have a frame of reference for public access television. I think we're
yeah.
of that age.
I know I know. It's more so for the. I was gonna explain what a fax machine was for the people for the younger demographic that listens, but they can Google it,
I was
or
at my
ask
local record store.
ChatGPT. I don't
I was
know.
at my local record store the other day when we were talking about like, yeah, tapes. You used to be able to tape songs off the radio,
Yeah. Yep.
and that
Yep.
like blew some like younger kids' mind.
Well,
So
listen, before we get a tariff slapped on this episode, Dave, send us home.
yeah, I liked yours. Be everybody be on the pulse of play.